Thank you for coming today. After the first round of the presidential election in Ukraine, was there any surprises in its outcome?
Surprises? Well, I would say that anyone who had not been reading the newspapers and watching the TV would possibly have been surprised at the third candidate, Tihipko, who received 13%. I think the first two, Yanukovych and Tymoshenko, were expected. Now I think the interesting question is going to be the 40% of the vote that people who did not vote for either Yanukovych or Tymoshenko, where is that vote going to go? And I think that's what makes this very interesting. It makes the Ukrainian election very exciting. The official 10-point difference between the two candidates, I think, still makes the outcome very difficult to predict.
Was it any surprises for you?
I agree with Nadia. No big surprises. I was waiting to see who came in third. Was not too surprised to see the people who came in fourth, fifth, and sixth.
I would add one thing that surprised me was how far off the national exit poll was from the final result. The national exit poll played such an important role in the Orange Revolution in 2004, 2005. And this time they were off by over 6%, or around 6%. So it's unclear how much of a sort of authority they're going to be when the second round comes along.
I know, Nadia, that you were a little bit involved in the exit poll process. Could you
Yes,
tell
for
us?
full disclosure, I should say that the National Endowment for Democracy, the organization where I work, actually contributed, made an award of a grant to this exit poll, as we have done for several of the previous exit polls. And to say in there as some partial explanation that was given to me, that this particular exit poll was the only one. Well, firstly, it's the only one that's totally transparent in terms of sources of funding. If you go to the offices of the organizers, you can see exactly where each hryvnia and each dollar has gone. Their sponsors are very known, and also they did actually collect some funding amongst sort of ordinary people with SMS messages, I understand. The other point about it is that they claim that they're the only exit poll that did not use any of the official institutions' weighted predictions or institutional waivers, that in the way that I'm not a sociologist, I don't know exactly how that works, but they were working strictly off, they claim, what the population was saying at the time of the exit poll. So I would say that this would possibly even at some point raise questions that the Central Election Commission's statistics might come under question.
So there is question of some manipulation, can be, as I understand.
Again, I don't want to go too deep into this, but that this is the exit poll that has been very precise for the last 3 or 4 or even 5 elections. The fact that it showed a very different result. I think that possibly we should be alert that maybe falsifications may be going on in a different place from where they were before.
That's
so,
actually. Oh.
I'm sorry. So you have two equally unpleasant alternatives. Either, on the one hand, there was serious falsification on behalf of the Central Election Commission, or the most authoritative exit poll got it wrong.
So actually, my next question is about the election process. How will you assess the election process in Ukraine, and which areas need significant improvements? Bill, because you worked there for a long time, so...
I was there for a long time. I observed a couple of elections, and I was impressed at the time when I would go to polling places at the professionalism of the people who were running the polling places. I was impressed at the seriousness with which Ukrainians took that responsibility. And I wasn't there this time, but all reports are that this was another in a string of good elections for Ukraine.
I have to support that, also having had some connection to the way that domestic observers were turning out. I know that this election, there are numerous observers, not only from OSCE, there'll also be an International Republican Institute delegation.
And you are
which, again, full disclosure, I will be on that delegation. Domestic observers are being fielded both by the organization Opora and also Committee of Voters of Ukraine. And also there will be a fairly large international observer delegation made up of people from the surrounding countries under the organization called Endowment. So I have to say that the Ukrainians themselves have become real experts in running elections. That in my previous experience as an observer, I've been extremely impressed by any place that I've gone to observe the vote, how well the officials there know the rules and regulations, and how disappointed they are if any sort of falsification is discovered at their polling station. So this actually shows that the Ukrainian people themselves really want to have clean and fair elections for the most part.
What about after-election process? We have a very tight run right now, and it's probably would be 4 or 5 or maybe 1 or 2% between two candidates. How would you see the after-election process? Do you predict any lawsuit and all these things?
I think especially if the margin is under 5%, you're definitely going to have court cases. Seems that all indications are heading in that direction. And there are significant problems with the legal procedures surrounding how election disputes are mediated. The Supreme Administrative Court, which has jurisdiction over these disputes, currently has 2 people claiming to be its chair, and there are 2 seals of the court out there with various different government bodies recognizing one or the other. So that's problematic. I'm also concerned that we just had the law on elections amended several days ago, and a fluid legal environment in the context of a very close election might not bode well for how things go afterwards.
Nadia?
I think that's right, that if the official result is any closer than, say, 4% or 5%, that it may end up in a protracted a period of legal cases in which, and at that time, Ukraine will not have a clear-cut president. So I think that this is actually a message for Ukrainians that, that the vote has to be clear. All of the people who were thinking of either boycotting or voting against all, or it would be good if they made up their minds who they prefer, because the clearer the majority, the better in the long run it is going to be for Ukraine. We don't want the situation where the parliament has been deadlocked for over a year now, and if the same thing happened to the presidency, then I think Ukraine would be in real trouble.